Welcome, traders. So today is June 16th, and we're going to be talking about one of the trades I took today. It was a relatively quick scalp. It wasn't really a long-term trade or a continuation move. I mean, in hindsight, looking at the trade now, I definitely should have held it. But I mean, more so now, after if you look at the end of day, there was a dilution event. But, um, I traded this one in the pre-market. It was a relatively quick trade. Saw this move in the morning. It started moving around 7 a.m. It pushed from 88 cents to about $3.11. And, if you look at the 5 minute, this candle here, this shooting star, this topping tail, whatever you want to call it, looked really, really promising. So I didn't take this short yet because I wasn't really paying attention to the stock until much later. But after this shooting star, after this rejection candle, you see that the ticker actually pushes up even higher and makes a new rejection candle. So this area here between 755 and 810 was a very dangerous trap for long and short sellers and buyers. So let's break this down. SUGP is a very, very low flow stock. Now, let's start by looking up the flow. So SUGP 470,000 shares. So this ticker only had about 500,000 shares in total float. But on the day, it traded almost 257 million shares, meaning the float rotation for this ticker was roughly 515 times. Just think about that for a second. That means on this particular day, the company, the entire company, the entire tradable flow of this company changed hands 515 times. So, what does this really tell you? Well, when the flow rotation is that high, it's very difficult to find out where the buyers and sellers are. Because when the stock has that much turnover, you know that the company, the entire tradable flow is changing hands every single minute. And that's a dangerous way to trade because you can't really identify where the longs are or the shorts. Support and resistance don't mean much when one person or a small group of traders or or every other minute the entire flow is changing hands. I mean, it's generally very, very hard to trade. So when I saw this move, after I saw this topping tail, I thought of two things. First, this initial topping tail here probably trapped a lot of buyers and sellers. Why? Because it broke the high of the previous candle, 265, hit 282, closed on a topping tail. So if you're a short bias trader, this candle here on a 5 minute looks incredibly weak. So if you were short in this position here, where would you get out? I'm willing to bet that if people had a really tight stop loss, it's 282. And even if you were willing to let the stock run a little bit, $3 is typically your line in the sand. This stock broke $3. So after it broke $3, we know that a lot of people exited near this candle, on this candle. And you can see that on this particular candle, on this 5 minute candle, it was the highest volume candle in the entire day. It's 14.5 million shares. So on this candle, the company rotated, the float rotated 29 times. And if this candle fails, we have a very good idea of where the stock wants to go because a lot of shares were absorbed in this candle. Shorts who exited, breakout buyers who bought the stock are all trapped in this candle. And the subsequent candles, as you can see, was a slow grind down. Now, when I was watching the stock, I actually wanted to take a short at the 280 level. You can see that the previous pivot, the previous high was around 282. So the cleanest entry would probably be shorting the 280s and risking the 311, so about 10%. But at that time, I remember the borrow fees were quite high. I think it was almost 7.8 cents, so almost 8 cents a share. And I don't like paying 8 cents a share for a short. I didn't want to be emotionally invested in a stock with that much turnover, that much float rotation on such a low float stock. You know, I didn't want to pay 78 cents. To me, it wasn't worth it. So I kept refreshing. Unfortunately, I think by the time I actually was ready to take a trade, the borrow fees actually dropped to about 3 cents. So 3 cents was very manageable. It was reasonable. I borrowed some shares. I shorted the 250s range, 250, 260. I think I tried to short the 260, but with slippage, I actually got filled around 255. And on this breakdown, I think I covered most of my position around the 220s and some in the 218 level. I think average exit was around 219. So shorting 250s, covering around 220, that got me $507. That was my one and clean trade on the day. I didn't really want to continue trading this. I had the shares and they were quite valuable, but I didn't want to continue trading this just because if the flow is rotating this many times in the pre-market, it's very difficult to get an accurate read on the stock. I mean, in hindsight, I kind of wish I held it or took a second trade because after this failed push above this 250 level, you can kind of see it just rolling over. And typically on a stock with that much momentum, that high of a float, sorry, that low of a flow, but that high volume, chances are it will probably run. But this one just completely rolled over. I mean, it faded all the way to about $1.60, and I think it had an offering. I think it was like a 38 million share offering, and that just decimated the stock. Went all the way back down to $1, and I mean that was basically it. I wish I held more, but I think it was I think it was a very clean entry. It was a quick scalp, quick entry, quick exit. I didn't try to overstay. I mean, there was a second trade to be had once this breakdown happened or once this failed push. But you can see how these candles are all over the place. On the 5 minute, you have a doji candle, then you have a topping tail. But if you look at the actual structure, you can see that the consolidation level around 220 to around 250s area was it was breaking down. But at the same time, when the flow is rotating that many times, it's also difficult to kind of say this stock is weak because by the time you actually want to enter, there's a whole new owner of the entire company, really, right? The entire float already changed hands. I mean, look at these candles 3 million, 4 million, 2 million. 2, 3 million is actually not too bad for penny stocks, but it's also very important to take into account that the float is only 500,000 shares. So, that was my trade for the day. That was my quick scalp. I wasn't feeling too good that day. Um, I'm making this after the fact, of course. So I wasn't feeling good in the morning, and I'm happy with my exit. I just wish I was able to take a second and a third trade, even if not on this stock, on a different ticker. but I can't argue with the quick scalp, the quick profit. So that's it. I guess that was it for the day. Just a quick scalp, 250s, clean exit, clean entry, clean exit. I mean, the bottom was 207. I got around 220, 215 to 218. So somewhere in that ballpark. I don't remember the exact numbers. I would have to pull it up. But I think the average exit was 218. Most of them was below that. Some was above. I had like 4 or 5 partial exits, but on average it was 218. So yeah, that's my trade and that's my recap. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for listening.